Joining us right now from some location somewhere around the world, it's Mike from around the world.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Strange world, though, but I'm doing pretty good.
It really is. It really, really is. And I know tomorrow you and I are going to be filming for the Aliens Among Us, and I can't wait to hear what you got to say on that. But tonight, we got your email, and I said, Heidi, let's see. Maybe Mike, if he's free, maybe he'll come on tonight. So, yeah, strange world, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. Pastor Paul, I'll tell you that email, I don't know if you read that email or not. But,
I did.
We're at a very volatile time, and a few surprises are in store, unfortunately. Well, and one of the biggest things is sometimes in this world that we live in, some things are contrived, some things are not. But when people form an opinion, and when something looks a bit fishy, right? Certain things can tip the balance and make people quite angry. I think this is going to happen in this case. Number one, with this shooter and some of the outlining facts that are around it. When they do come out, which that'll begin tomorrow, some of those facts will begin to come out tomorrow. And there are hearings scheduled. They'll take place immediately. But I can already tell you it's going to be a hearing. Information will come out. They're going to do the pressing for information and the open reprimands, this, that, and the other. But then it will drag on because the populace is not going to be settled. They're not going to be satisfied with what they're hearing. And it's going to look like, to a lot of people, some sort of planned event. That's the problem. See, if the outcome of this shooter looks like it was encouraged from within,
yes,
we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a big problem.
And also, Mike, if it's perceived that there's a major cover-up going on right before our eyes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you can't. No individual is going to go over all those facts with everybody. It is a federal investigation, and but these, you start looking at those DEI hires, and the story comes together. It really comes together.
Because this team, help me understand, but I'm understanding that the Secret Service team that was there that day, and even maybe some of the local police officers, there was a lot of substitutes. There wasn't. Am I right? There was people.
Yeah. Well, 2 days prior to that event, the police notified them that they did not have sufficient personnel to complement things. But the answer back to them was Secret Service had enough people to handle that. Right. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but the snipers that I saw on television, they didn't quite look like. They didn't look like your average Secret Service snipers. That's not what they look like. They look like some sort of a security hire, and the whole situation is just not. It's not going to give clarification. It's going to give rise to much speculation. That's going to be a problem. And when certain facts come out, people are going to be outraged, and it is somehow. Personally, I'd like to cushion that blow, but it's going to come out, and people are going to be a little angry. They're not going to be satisfied with what comes out.
Well, I mean, I think when one of the things that's bothering us is that the shooter was identified over an hour before. He was walking around. He parked his bike under a tree. People saw him up on the roof. They were yelling and pointing. I mean, I'm talking video of this. They
told the police. Yeah, they told the police he was on the roof, and of course, nothing worse than that, though. Secret Service, normal Secret Service, you're supposed to have a perimeter, right? Safety perimeter.
Yes.
With you need to match that perimeter with a maximum yield of explosives and rounds, 5.56 and 0.62, and that's about 1,500 meters. Right, I believe they were 125 meters away.
Yeah,
something like that.
He was.
Right? So
100.
It was very close.
I mean, this was they dinky. The perimeter was just dinky, and it's and there's 50,000 people. Okay,
and it was non-secure. It just was not secure. And of course, but the setup before that, there were aerial vehicles, right, involved.
Yes.
There was two surveys involved. Of course, there are people that scout out the area prior to the event in the first place, right? Now, all this is going to come up, and people will not be satisfied. They're not. I just think it's going to give rise to a lot of contention. And then this on top of Joe Biden. Well, we knew Joe Biden was going to leave. He was going to drop out. But some of the picks at the Democratic convention, it's going to look like it's some sort of competitive thing with the Democrats. It's not going to be a competitive thing. They've already made up their mind. It's quite clear. But this situation with that situation is going to cause a big stink in how people vote, Pastor Paul. And it's going to be this lingering issue, right? This lingering thing.
Well, it's bringing doubt, and it's bringing illegitimacy to the entire process. I mean,
yeah, it is.
Biden got over 14 million votes, okay? And he got 3,904 delegates. Jesse Palmer had 3 delegates. Dean Phillips had 5. Phillips got more votes. He got twice as many votes. He got 511,000 votes for president. Kamala Harris, when she ran in 2020, didn't even get 200,000 votes. So, and she didn't get any. And she's a heartbeat. She is a moment or two away from the presidency and maybe even the nomination. Let me ask you, Mike. I mean, Biden endorsed Harris when he quit today, and immediately the Clintons jumped in and endorsed her. But then 15 minutes later, Obama came out and said, "Hold on a minute. We need to have a process at the convention." So it looks like the Clintons and the Obamas are not on the same page.
No, in fact, if anybody listened to Joe Biden, he in his retort concerning Obama suggesting he should drop out, step aside, right? He openly said to the entire world that Obama's way of doing things didn't work for him either. Okay.
Right.
So Obama has no he has no currency. He doesn't have the currency people think in Washington, period. Right. So you can almost consider him as an echoed voice, so to speak. Right. Internal things have happened. They have happened. But I will tell you this, months ago, there was a scenario we talked about on your show. And there was an individual back in the early 2000s. No, I'm sorry, that was back in the 90s. And he said he was talking about a female president. Now, his end comment was this: once a female president gets in office, they'll never come out. They won't come out. This is the establishment's their wish, their plan. They'll never come out, which is why Harris was appointed VP with Biden in the first place, because she came out of nowhere. Now, that means if something would have happened to Joe Biden, by default, she would have been president. If that would have happened, she would have still been, competing for the next seat of the presidency. Right. And so that would have happened anyway. Once a woman gets in there, here's the paradigm. You'd be shocked at how many women, right, populate the votes. You'd be just, that'd blow you away.
It's a big vote.
Away.
Yeah, it's a big vote.
So if a female gets up there, that's just gonna, and preferably they don't want just any female. That's not what they want. So Kamala Harris represents exactly what they want, right? Exactly what they want. So, there we are at that. So we'll see how that turns out. But that's what they want.
So you feel like it's that she is going to get the nomination?
It's
maybe
it's what they want.
It's what they want.
So it's a big chance. That's always going to be, if they can get the people to back it, right? They'll be good, because right now all the money just went in her direction.
Yes.
Didn't go in anybody else's direction. I'm talking about the big donors. So we have these big donors who also endorse an individual, right? It lets you know who the establishment wants. And believe it or not, the corporate world, they fund, support, suggest things to the governments, and things naturally happen, kind of like the Bilderbergs. And,
Right.
that the Bilderberg group, the group they said didn't exist back in 92, that group.
Yeah, that group.
Yeah, that group. So, these, and which will kind of catapult everything forward. But I'll also say this. This is a very strange thing, Pastor Paul. This shooter episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to satisfy everybody. Some people are going to look right through it, right?
Yep.
They're going to think that that there's lots of nefarious activities taking place naturally. It's not going to settle the minds of voters like they want. It's just not. When that happens, it's going to happen at a very trying time. We have these there's some serious problems on this earth, and not all of them are caused by humanity, but it just so happens all of this is happening in the same time frame, I guess you could say. But imagine a people who found out that somebody on the inside had ties, or actually had some sort of assisted, right? Or just looked away purposely from this shooter.
Right, from the shooter.
That's going to be a firestorm. That's going to be the very thing they try to avoid in the questioning beginning tomorrow.
Do you
They're
think
going to attempt to minimize it as best they can, but I don't think it's going to work. And if people don't know this beforehand, they're going to lose it when the information comes out.
So tomorrow,
because the information is somewhat overwhelming.
So tomorrow, when the head of the Secret Service, when she's up there and she's being questioned by Congress, and that's going to be ugly, is she going to plead the fifth a lot? Is she going to dodge and weave? I mean, how is she going to get out of this? Because
that's going to be a standard questioning. Because if first of all, they would not appoint, it's going to show bias from the institution to President Trump is what's going to happen, right? They're going to attempt to evade that. In other words, they want it to seem like, because the next day when he went to the convention, did you notice something at the convention? Now, I don't say this against females, but there were no females. No females in Secret Service. Each guy had to be at least 215 pounds or
about
more.
6'5".
They were of a specific height. They totally covered him up. And that's a standard for Secret Service. Secret Service is a standard for the rest of the all these different agencies as far as security and operations. But what President Trump had was not what you would call Secret Service.
They were actors.
When's the last time Secret Service hid behind somebody? You don't hide behind the principal. Right, you protect the principal at all costs, and these guys, one person cowered down behind the truck, this, that, and the other. So it shows you they were more like admin personnel, right?
I understand
like
they were.
personnel,
Some of them were actually administrative personnel from the Department of Homeland Security, but
DI hires, pointed a similar
actors.
job. They didn't take it seriously. So, but that shows bias, does it not, in a very toxic environment that we live in anyway, as far as this polarization between Democrats and Republicans, and that warning of any right now we live at a time where the threat level is pretty high for presidential candidates and VPs, right?
Yeah.
And this, if they don't, with this thing coming up, people are going to begin to notice, wait a minute, they didn't afford Trump everything they could have, and then God forbid if something happened in that very time frame to somebody else in the Republican Party.
Yeah, this is a serious moment. And like you said, when this starts to be revealed in front of the public this week, tomorrow, and however many days they do it, and in conjunction with Biden dropping out and the chaos of who's going to replace him. And oh, by the way, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, immediately called for President Biden to resign from the White House, that if you can't finish the campaign, then you can't finish the term either.
That's right.
So that's going to be a big push. And oh, by the way, Benjamin Netanyahu's showing up tomorrow. He,
Yeah.
he
Yeah, he is.
he's coming to town, and he's not really that welcomed by the Biden administration. I mean, he's going to address Wednesday. He's going to speak before a joint session of Congress, and I'm hearing already that the squad is already saying they're going to protest. They're going to make a scene right there in the Congress. And Mike Johnson said that he's going to have extra sergeant of arms there to remove anybody that gets out of line. I mean, this is getting ugly. It's like our government structure is collapsing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. Which lets you know something else is rising.
Oh,
Something else is rising quickly. We live in listen, this stuff, please don't think that they don't understand the timing of the earth, the timing of these heavenly incidences. They know, right? If they have all the optics, if they have all the information, if they can see everything both in space and the earth, they're timing everything precisely, right? Me personally, I can't trust. I wouldn't trust too many people inside the institution because they can easily be bought in specific ways.
exactly.
Right? Especially when people switch sides too many times. You can't trust a person like that. That person is morally bankrupt and corrupt. But in this case, with the focal point being President Trump, that's going to be the focal point, right? There will still be, and I hate to say this, but everybody ought to get prepared for it. There will be attempts. There will be attempts
on him again. There'll be more attempts on him.
There will be attempts. This guy, the shooter, right?
Yep.
Although he did not have a digital footprint, that does not mean he didn't have connections. It's not what that means.
He was in I watched him in a BlackRock commercial.
Yeah, it means it's very difficult to find stuff on this guy, right? Very difficult to find. Right. Now, you can't. Last time when I said this, when somebody does not have a digital footprint, you cannot do that by yourself.
No.
You have to have help.
You have to
have help.
He had help.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to have people out there that know how to scrub data from the internet. You have to have help. You have to be encouraged. Whether he's a fall guy, whether he's a chess piece that somebody else was using. When this story comes out, people are not as gullible as they used to be, and they're not going to buy some of the stuff they're about to hear, right? So, which means,
let me ask you, Mike, why didn't the officers have body cameras on? Not one. Who made that decision? Who called that?
It may change now that you just openly said that. That may change.
I mean,
they're listening.
I know they're listening, but I'm asking them I would ask them a question right now if they were sitting here and say, you tell me how every officer didn't have his camera on. Who made that decision?
Pastor Paul, and they were contacted 2 days prior to that event, right?
Right.
And then I believe it was a week prior to that, right? You because when you have a rally, you have to notify the city. You have to preserve things. You just don't show up and set up right. And police officers have to control traffic. They have to make detours. They have to look at security points and problematic areas, so on and so forth. But it was almost like everybody turned a blind eye.
Well, and the guys I'm talking about now, I'm not talking about the Secret Service. I'm talking about every local officer. Somebody told them to turn off their body cams. You would never why would you turn off your body cam on the biggest event in Butler, Pennsylvania history? Why in the world, with 50,000 people with potential for problems everywhere, why would you turn off because they were all told to keep them on.
Wait until you see that guy. Wait until you see the chief, the guy that was the city manager. Right?
Have you seen
that?
Do you know what we're going to see?
I know who he is. I know who he is. Just wait till you see him. You'll have an understanding of that. But people, the problem is people are going to be outraged, right? They're going to have no choice but to fall back on their own conclusions because not enough will come forward to stop the suspicions. And anytime that happens, that makes the situation twice as volatile. Right? I mean, twice as volatile.
Okay, Mike. Now, just hold this thought. I'm not done with this yet, but let's go to CrowdStrike for a minute. Okay? Mike, how in the world help me understand. I got two questions. I got another question for you. I did the body cam thing for you. I'm going to ask you about how in the world the Houthis got a drone into Tel Aviv through the Iron Dome in a minute. But before I do, I want to ask you, how in the world did CrowdStrike, how did we have hospitals, banks, airplanes, 911 service systems? I mean, this was the biggest unbelievable failure in history. How did that happen? A glitch by one company called CrowdStrike?
Well, here's a better question.
Okay.
How could a guy, right? That Mike guy from the bushes talk about that subject the day before it happened?
What Mike guy? You?
Know. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you said
around the world guy.
Yeah, the round the world guy on Thursday night said, "Look out for a big." And it happened the next day. I know that that Mike guy.
I had a couple talks about cybersecurity.
I know you did. I know you did.
Because then because CrowdStrike is tied into Microsoft Windows and some other operating systems, right? Yeah. What it really exposes is how vulnerable we are, right? CrowdStrike is simply, CrowdStrike is an embedded system that deals with security. They have to, it's just like, think of Norton Antivirus, right? When everybody had Norton Antivirus, imagine Norton Antivirus uploading or updating their own software and it did not work. Just imagine that. And it would crash everybody's system who had used that, right? So in this case, it terminated usage of that machine because it could not determine a full detection of any, hostilities or anything like that. Now that's on the surface. In the back end, everything went wrong, right? When these systems detect an intruder, and everybody ought to know this, they better know this from this point on. When any of these systems, embedded systems that are embedded in all these devices, right? When these, I'm going to call them master systems, when they go haywire, everything else is tied to it is going haywire, right?
Okay.
Now that means all these, everybody is tied together with certain pieces of software, right? It is no guarantee that software is going to continue to work flawlessly, and it can shut down everybody's device. I mean, everybody, unless it's an isolated system, it's going to shut it down. Now, I got news for folks. There were certain, small towns that could not function. People couldn't buy food, gas, or anything else.
Right.
Because the computer systems were not working. They can't process credit cards. The banks were not working. It just affected everything across the board. You think it's going to, now they told everybody right before it happened, this wild guy that everybody knows, right? Yep. He pops on, and he was even talking to his own, people out there, and he said, they'll probably say it's a patch or an update that went wrong. That was that morning.
And they did. They did.
Right. So the prediction of the issue lets you know it's not quite what they said.
That means you knew it's
not quite what they said.
In intelligence, you already knew there was something out there. So, Mike, let me ask you. That means, in my opinion, I guess what you're saying is this was an attack, some type of cyber security attack, whether it was internally from the enemies within or externally from the enemies without. Do you think we know which one it was?
Yeah, but there's nothing you can do. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Imagine a country like China, who sold to the U.S. for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they embedded some sort of code in some of their chips, some of their benign chips.
With a timer?
Which is in every single device. Well, not quite. Maybe you send out a small signal, possibly it's tied to a date, whatever the case is. And then everything goes haywire all at one time. And there's nothing anybody can do about it, right? But throw away that equipment and get more. Well, it's a situation like that. In this case, you have the enemy who is already in the motherboard of more than a few systems. It's impossible to get them out. The only way to stop what's about to fall is to replace every single motherboard in the USA.
You can't do that.
And all the other motherboards that are connected to them. So that means the world itself would have to change, right? You can't do that.
So this is the real Y2K.
You can't lock them down either.
This is the real
Yeah.
Y2K, which is
You can't lock them down
it's
either.
inflicted by an enemy to sabotage and cripple us, and we've allowed these other nations to participate in our microchip technology and all the sensors.
It's too late. It's too late. Too late. So somebody has their finger on a trigger right now, right?
Yep.
They haven't pulled it. So which should let everybody know that there's some coordinated efforts, despite no matter what the day looks like, have an understanding that somebody else can easily embed our systems right now.
Yeah.
At any given moment, it can happen again. See, we sometimes we don't catch on. We've had all of a sudden we had the cell phones go down. We've had that error, right?
Yep.
No answer, except for the news media coming back the same day. Now, first of all, if the system goes down, you can't come on 10 minutes and say it is not terrorist. It's not an attack. You can't say that. If anybody ever says that within 10 minutes,
they
have no idea what's happening.
They
have no idea what's happening. That's right. And you know what? Even that was told. So let me spill the beans.
Yes, they did.
I told everybody before this happened, Passport,
that it was going to happen.
I did it by, I told them details. And that morning, at 3 a.m. in the morning, before they got on the news, I told everybody what they were going to say. So in the hopes that people would realize that we're headed down a path that's absolutely biblical, right?
Yes.
And they know about it.
Yes.
Now, there's nothing they can do about the natural things, right? They can't do anything about that. There are devastations forming right now that people can't even see, and they're forming right now. It's going to be a difficult and tough time for a lot of folks. They know this, but they're going to time, their little rise or their little door opening at the same time that these difficulties are at their worst moment.
They're going to take advantage of us at the
yes,
most.
They are. They are.
Okay, let me ask you a question too, because when you mentioned it, if you hear them saying that kind of thing, just like the assassination attempt on Trump, 15 minutes after it happened, the White House said that they had intel that it was Iran.
Yep. Well, yeah, they do that. Now, here's why they said that. They tried to cover themselves.
Right.
It's just so foolish. But Iran put out two statements. One was a month ago. The last one was a month ago. The last one was about 2 weeks ago. So you had one a month ago, one 2 weeks ago, that they were encouraging everybody to hit the U.S. Everybody.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, despite that message, who would want to do a deal with Iran when they're giving messages like that? Anyway, they did that. And so the first thing the White House did was to say, to try and tie that to some state activity, which they always do that. They will always do that. When they have a lapse in security, they always do things like that. It doesn't mean Iran was not involved somehow. It just means they didn't know what was going on, right? That they totally dropped the ball. More than that, their plan didn't work. Something didn't work right. Something failed. Normally that happens in a security failure, is they will bring up Iran. They'll bring up, China or Russia, and say that it's, them, because they just had a big failure. But Pastor, it's not over. See, these are hints. This is a foreshadowing. And if that was, I can't help but to think it was a very close call. It's a very close call.
Well, Mike, will Trump stay indoors now? Will he do any more outdoor rallies, or do you think he's going to keep it in now?
Well, he's got real Secret Service, right?
Okay.
And so the real Secret Service will dictate what he can and cannot do. If there's a threat, they're not going to let him on the stage. They're just not going to do it.
Because the real ones aren't going to. You aren't going to put.
That's right. They're not going to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Because he's not. And the only alternative is to put him in a box where he can speak. I don't think he's going to speak in a box.
No.
So they just wouldn't let him on the stage. But they can clear the perimeter, 1,500 meters, possibly in his case, 2,000 meters. That helps. That means if an explosive goes off, he's safe.
Yeah.
If somebody fires, small to medium rounds, he's safe. If anybody fires anything higher, they're going to get that guy before he can,
Yeah.
get away from that place. So he's still safe, right? Plus, they're tall enough to cover Trump. You can't hire Secret Service that's shorter than you are. That's a no-go.
No.
And these guys are robust. They were all right. During the convention, they were not all right when he went to that rally. The simple truth was, they did not want to support anything he was doing.
No.
That's the truth.
I know.
And if you're a president, if you've been president of this country, they are supposed to afford you those services, right? They didn't want to do it. And so something's going to come out. They're going to be in breach of what their own protection clause is supposed to be in the first place. People are going to be outraged.
Right.
So I hope that everybody preps themselves not to be emotionally compromised.
You're preparing
when these things
us.
come out.
You're preparing us for when this stuff comes out, not to get yourself too worked up and too out of whack, because it's going to be bad, and you might as well get ready for it. Okay, and that they're not done. They're not done. There's more plots. Okay, let's take it to another question, and that is, how did the Houthis, from Yemen, how did they get drones past the Iron Dome, kill a man and injure some in Tel Aviv? Now, Israel struck back, of course, and did some serious damage, but Israel's fighting a war in Gaza. They're fighting a war really with Hezbollah now. Now this war is expanding. But how do they have do the Iranians have some new technology with drones now that can sneak past the Iron Domes?
Pastor, they've had it. The Iranians work like this. They don't show their hand, right? You can almost defeat a regiment of Iranians. It does not mean they're going to show what they really have. They do things based on very strategic believe it or not, these guys are extremely strategic, which is why many countries will not mess with that, despite what anybody has heard, right? Anybody with firsthand knowledge, they have an understanding that Iran has some mystique behind them.
Now,
they also have some elements that nobody has ever encountered, and I hope that nobody does. But for example, they have the most feared special forces on the planet. How about that? The most feared. Nobody wants to tangle with these guys. Nobody.
Well, what
wants
about
to tangle with their special forces.
Egypt and Saudi Arabia airspace? Saudi Arabia is denying that they let the Houthis use their airspace.
They'll always do that.
And the Egyptians.
That's why they're going to be wiped off the map. They will. They will.
So, in other words, there may be some collaboration going on with the Egyptians, or maybe just Saudi Arabians, or both. I don't know, but
Saudi takes a neutral. They're always going to take this neutral position, not to put themselves in harm's way until their army is totally built up. Keep in mind, at the beginning of the year, they were building up their army and air defense forces. They're not there yet, right? So they can't really say anything. And Iran, they're the ones that captured our drones some years back. They also shut down 2 of our battleships. They also disrupted communications on an aircraft carrier 3 times so far. So they have some special adaptations to technology, right? Very special. How did this come about? Because they had the best scientists in the world working there for many years. Some of the same scientists that are at CERN, right, were working for Iran. Now, when it comes to science in the international community, they're non-combatants, so they're all over the place. They could be, in China. They're certainly in space right now over our heads, working together while everybody else is at war with each other. They still collaborate on all ideas. And so technology has advanced. There's something akin to almost like you know what a tractor beam is, right?
What?
So a tractor beam,
okay,
like a beam, that little beam they used to show in Star Trek a long time ago, right. So they have a technology based on sound and based on these, I guess you'd call them negative pulses, right? That can stop communications. I mean, just seize communications. They took control of one of our drones, which means they hacked the internal communications.
Hijack.
Which is impossible. You can't do that to one of our drones. Even on the inside of that drone, it has encrypted communication component to component. There's no line-to-line communication in that drone. It's all encrypted. And there's separate components that talk to each other inside the drone. They're not hardwired to communicate with each other. They do that so if somebody tries to get that drone, they still won't be able to make all the components work. These guys remotely control that thing all the way down to the airport, which means they already knew about the technology. They deciphered the technology, right? And hijacked it from us. And so they take this and develop more things. Well, what does that tell you? That means Iran is actually a representation of Russia, China, North Korea, and some of these other places that do not like us, right? The same individuals that surround Israel have the same technology as Israel. They know how to get beyond the Iron Dome. They've been probing for years, right? They already know they can get it through overwhelming it, but they understand how the system works. How is that? Because there are spies on the inside of Israel who don't belong there. And ever since, you're going to find out, this is a sad fact, ever since this Hamas conflict popped up, right, you're going to notice that Israel is compromised in many areas because there are people inside Israel that hate Israel, and they are Israeli.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, in the Bible it says, I know you're around those who say they are Jews but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Right.
So you have a lot of spies in there, and they are giving away military secrets and everything else they can give away to the enemy. The enemy takes, they implement it, take full advantage, and then boom, this will escalate. In the meanwhile, the USA, if we continue on this path, we're going to have our hands tied up. Right? We should really prepare ourselves. I know that people are hoping for a good outcome. I believe correction is coming. I do. Some type of trial is coming to this nation. It is coming, and it's forming quickly. Pastor Paul's forming quickly.
I think we're starting to see it. I mean, it's our government's unraveling, which is leading us to a big time trial. Is what you're saying? It's coming.
Yeah. And it's going to be more than just, this man-made stuff.
Right.
We face some geological nightmares that nobody can get a grip on right now, right? The Atlantic is going to surprise everybody. The Gulf will, most certainly. And so will the West Coast. The West Coast has problems right now. And I personally believe that in Washington State and going up near that area, they're going to have a severe problem here very soon. I pray it's not that way, but
the magma's moving.
I think they're going to have a problem. They're going to have a bad problem.
Isn't the magma moving in that area? Don't we have?
Oh yeah. Some of those volcanoes that were inactive,
yes,
that were dormant, extinct, whatever you want to call them. Well, they have activity.
They're waking up
since this year. Actually, since November of 2023, these things have been slowly waking up, which means, new magma is coming into them, right? They're going to have some issues. The land is sinking at a rapid pace in certain areas of California, all the way up to Washington state, going into Canada. Some places are completely underwater now. And so there's some problems there, big time problems. Right? So that land is giving way.
So we're dealing with some serious, weather, climate, all different types of things happening, whether it be on the Earth or the sun, or the incoming meteorite wall that's coming, the Apophis that's going to swing by. We got to deal with Planet X, and we got a lot to deal with here. The sun is still not even hit its maximum yet, right? We're still not there yet.
No, we're not there yet. We had a slight first peak, but there are two peaks in these cycles, right? And so this next peak is probably will be a doozy. Also, Pastor Paul, I believe we are in this period now where volcanoes are about to go off all across the earth. I say that because they not only did they pinpoint external influences, but some of the forces from those external influences. They're building special adaptations. They're going to launch them, I believe, next month or September or October, just to start to track some of these exotic influences that are starting to really, change some things on our planet. What that means is people are going to see magma in places they never thought volcanoes existed, right? That will happen. We're going to have land swells within the USA and other places. a few things will begin to happen
Mike,
that are not favorable.
why is the moon drifting away? It's drifting away slowly. Is this gravitational pull or
By lasers? They track that by lasers. It's been doing that, right?
yeah.
But the rate at which it is retracting. Now they do this by a very specific formula, Pascal, because you have a time when the orbit of the moon is at a closer radius than at other times, and then it goes back. So it's oscillating, even in its orbit.
That's natural.
It's oscillating.
That's natural. Yes.
So yeah, but it is widening. But that's not the only thing widening, right? You have the inner planets that are starting to alter their course as far as orbits. So everything that governs stable celestial mechanics from Earth to the interior planets is subject to be disrupted, right?
Yeah,
it is
something's disrupting it.
One of the planets on the inside, right? Mercury.
Okay.
It is thought that Mercury, man, this is an odd fact. It'll gain more traction though among the people as they get to see it. But some of these planets, Pascal, it's probably smart to say they haven't been there for as long as we think, right?
Okay.
Not in the orbit like we see it today, which means one of those planets was dislodged and it came very close to Earth and it caused a great amount of damage on the Earth.
Okay.
And they suspect it's about to happen again because of the property changes, right? You're essentially looking at a magnetic ball. And you have a sun which sends out solar pulses, right? Everybody knows that heat can kill a magnet, right? Heat can. So with these pulses the sun is sending out, if it breaks the magnetism or disrupts it on a side of that planet, it's going to cause it to wobble. It's stable. It's settled itself in an orbit pretty good, but the magnetic forces are enormous, right? On that going out to the other planets, it's enormous. And although it's not enough for, it's not as much as you would think, but if it loses that balance, it will shift out of orbit. And they believe that planet is going to be one of the first ones that starts to shift.
That affects everything else.
Yeah, well, slowly but surely it will.
Yeah.
It will, slowly but surely.
Well, it sounds like, Mike, there's a lot of issues going at the same time.
There is. And
so we don't need all this upheaval within our own government and our own electoral process again. It's people are going to lose faith, and this is going to be a tough week, right?
Yeah, it is. This will be the beginning of it. But you know what, Pascal, I can't help to say this. I still believe that the Lord's appointed believers, the real believers, right?
Yes.
They're gonna quickly burn out on this worldly stuff. Right. And when they do stand up, because they'll get a chance, they'll begin to see people burn themselves out. Evil's going to rise, but evil's going to be thrust into absolute darkness.
Amen. Amen.
But the real believers, right, they're going to get tired of sitting at home. They're going to get up and start doing things about it. We're going to have an extra push. That's what we'll have, an extra push. Because I believe the only change that we're actually going to see in any godly direction is if we get up and do it. That's what I believe.
Well, there you go. And that's probably what's going to happen. So what you're saying is you're going to see a move. You're going to see a move, get up and move. It's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Amen.
I do believe that.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. I don't want to keep you here all night, but I just wanted to, I appreciate you taking the time out to come in on a Sunday night. This is big news, and things are moving big, and every time something like this huge happens, I think, we probably should see if Mike can come on tonight. Let's talk about it, because things are we're seeing big shifts, paradigm shifts taking place, right?
And crazy things happening. We till tomorrow.
I'm going to be watching.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that, Pascal. As I said before, it's a very close subject to me.
Yes,
right?
yes.
It's one of the reasons I began to, start doing what I'm doing. Right? It is because I know what everybody's about to encounter, and some people on this earth this year in 2024, right? Their lives are forever altered, and it's only a matter of a very short time that this same thing everybody will be exposed to. Everybody. I don't know what's on the other side of that or how people are going to come out, but I will tell you this. It's going to challenge everything within a person. So I hope that they're rooted and grounded now. I really do.
In Christ. Put your faith in Jesus Christ right now, not in man. Amen.
Yep.
All right. We'll be watching tomorrow. And Mike, thank you. So again, brother, thank you so much for coming and being with us tonight. Thank you. And I'll see you tomorrow anyway, with taping the Alien.
Sure will, Pastor Paul.
I can't wait to hear what you got to say on that.
Well, I can't wait either.
All right, Mike. I'll see you. God bless you. Thank you, brother.
God bless.